Hello, everyone. This is Al Gilbert, the Chief Listening Officer for AdvisoryOptions.net, with another recording of 15 Minutes of Fame. Now, as you know, I love listening to interesting people, and my guest today is Christina Woronchak, who I met at American Express Global Business Travel. And she is now the founder of a brand new venture called Solo Dining and Adventures. And we'll see if I can bring up a screenshot here. There we go. So Christina, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really
Is,
honored.
is that a temporary logo, or is that the permanent logo, you think?
We'll see. I think things should always evolve. So,
Okay,
it's what it is for the time being.
good. Well, Christina, you've had a very successful career as an executive sales leader, many years for American Express Global Business Travel, Deem, and Encore Travel. You've now done something that very few of us have the resources or courage to do, which is to strike out on our own as an entrepreneur. And you've started Solo Dining and Adventures, which I'm going to refer to as SDNA, if it's okay, just to save time.
Yeah.
So tell us, when you decided to do this, describe the void your service is going to fill.
Well, that's a really great question. And then first and foremost, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be your guest today. A couple of things, and I feel like I have a lot of experience in this particular area because I've been traveling solo for several years now. But there's a growing interest. If you look at any studies or any statistics, there's definitely a growing demand for solo travel and solo dining. There is, some people call it a loneliness epidemic, but, just general concerns about people feeling a little bit isolated and, wanting to make connections and do things. And then the last is, I think a lot of people are moving away from the satisfaction that used to come from material possessions, and people are really yearning for experiences.
Mhm.
And sometimes there's definitely an interest for people to travel on their own if they have a partner that's not interested in the same things that they're interested in. So there's a really broad definition around solo travel. I think a lot of people usually think that it's for singles or if it's mature women, but there are a lot of people that are traveling solo.
So is the service open for men as well as women?
Yes, absolutely. It's open for everybody.
And it's not necessarily restricted for people who live alone. It's just people who might live with others but are traveling alone either because they have to or they want to.
Absolutely. My contractor is a great example of that. I have someone doing some work in my house. His wife loves to travel and he doesn't. So she plans her own trips and he looks after the kids when she does that, and it works for them. So, there's a lot of, there's a lot of reasons for people to travel. Some people want to learn something new. Some people want to discover parts of the world that they've always dreamed of seeing. And, I think there's a general sense of urgency for people to do those things. So, they're not really ready to wait for somebody to come along with them if they really want to do something.
Well, you traveled extensively, solo travel in your business career. Was there a
Yes.
particular experience that you had as a solo travel that influenced your decision to do this now?
Well, I traveled a lot. I traveled for 25 years for business. And, at the very beginning, it was a really scary proposition for me. It took me some time to feel comfortable with that. But I'm really thankful for the fact that I was able to go to countries like China and Finland and Denmark. And, business travel opened up a whole world to me. When I was married, I would travel with my husband. The notion of me going off on a trip on my own wasn't really something that I embraced. So over the last couple of years, as I've been alone, I didn't want to wait to do things. So, I just got out there and I was inspired by a lot of different destinations that I had visited for business travel. But, there's a lot of curiosity and I have a real sense for discovery. And there's so many things that I want to do and so many places that I want to go.
Yeah. Well, the travel industry on the leisure side is priced pretty much on double occupancy prices. It's not really financially friendly to the solo traveler. Is that something you hope to change by working with major tour operators and companies?
Absolutely. I'd love to be an advocate for that. Just 2 weeks ago, I was at Yellowstone and I wanted to visit the park with a guide, and I had to pay for two people because they just, they there isn't a solo price for one person on their own that wants to go, at least not from the operator that I selected. So even the guide was surprised that I was paying for two people. He thought that was pretty hefty, which it was. But that's one example. There's a trip that I'm going to in the fall. I've always wanted to go to the Burgundy region of France, and I'm part of a really interesting wine club here in Canada, and they're planning a trip. And I have to pay a huge premium because I'm traveling on my own. So I'd like to see unbundled pricing where I'm not penalized for the fact that I don't have somebody sharing a room with me. I think I eat less than most couples, so I
Yeah.
don't think I should pay more.
Yeah, I would kind of hope that, I'm not going. There's a river cruise next year with Pan American Airline alumni that I'm not going to go on because I can't find a roommate.
Yeah,
And I would hope that tour operators like that, like cruise companies and others, might offer, a reasonable single supplement, maybe 30 days out. Because they're not going to
yeah,
sell the cabin anyway, probably at
that's
that
right.
point. But they don't seem to work. They don't seem to work at that.
And you know what, Al, you bring up a really interesting point. I think, solo travelers travel a lot. They'll do over 3 trips a year. So I think solo travelers are a little more flexible. So I think, those last minute opportunities would probably be very interesting to solo travelers. I know that would be very compelling for me.
Yeah, I would, just a circumstantial evidence. I would say there's probably millions of dollars of unspent leisure travel because people just can't afford the double occupancy rates.
Yeah.
So, um, you and I are both dog lovers. When I travel with my dogs, which is often, I consult a website called bringfido.com. Are you familiar with that one?
No, I haven't checked it out.
Check it out, bringfido.com. They basically list hotels and restaurants which are pet friendly, and those are those are the establishments that I go to. For example, I will go to if I travel across country, I will go to any Motel 6 sight unseen because they have a nationwide dog friendly policy. Is that the kind of model that might work for solo dining, where someone might go to the website and find out which restaurants are solo friendly, which hotels are solo friendly? Is that part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think it requires quite a bit of research for solo diners or travelers, to find this information on their own. I think there's an opportunity to consolidate some of this content. Personally, I've seen a huge improvement in both Resi and OpenTable. While, when I log into both of those apps, which I use frequently, the default is always a table for two, but Resi makes it really easy to select, one diner. And actually, as you look at the different times, it'll tell you if it's a dining room, a counter, or the bar area. So it makes it really, really easy. And I feel like it's a pretty good experience. With OpenTable, you actually have to go a little bit deeper into the app. So once you've selected the time, then you can see the different seating options. So I would say Resi over OpenTable is a little bit better from my own personal use perspective. But there are some resources out there. But I love what you're saying. I think there's an opportunity to have more information.
Yeah, yeah. I think with the advent of the internet, people will pay not a premium, but they'll pay a reasonable price for convenience.
For sure.
So if you've created such a site that makes it convenient for people to plan their solo travel, they'll probably support those hotels and restaurants and other vendors which are part of it. And I'm not sure how this is going to be monetized, but using bringfido.com, I think is a combination of advertising and referral clicks, from the website to the actual property.
Yeah.
Um, is you in one of your recent postings on LinkedIn, you talked about the possibility of restaurants, particularly hotels, having maybe like a communal table where people could could meet each other. I think that's a great idea. So if I'm standing there alone, as a man or a woman, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The maitre d' might ask, would you like to join the communal table?
Hmm. I've had that wonderful experience at least twice now. A couple of years ago, I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I think the restaurant was called Pasquale's. I can't remember exactly, but they had a communal table and it was amazing. I met some ladies that had been traveling all over the world and they had some fabulous stories. And then last summer, I went to Florida with my sister. I got there the day before she did. And when I went to the restaurant, rather than seating me at a bar, they sat me down at a communal dining table. And I liked the experience so much that when she joined me the next day, we sat there again. And both days, I met some really interesting people and had some great conversations. So I think it's a great way to foster social connection. And I think it's a great way for restaurants to create an even better experience for solo diners. I mean, not everybody wants to talk to somebody when they're out dining, but
No,
for the times that you do, it's nice to have the option.
it's nice to have the option. I mean, I know when I was traveling for business, I usually wanted to eat breakfast by myself because I was still kind of working or getting into the sales game in my head.
Yeah.
But you're a co-founder of the professional networking group Crew, right?
Yeah. Well, I was one of the earliest members and the first woman to join Crew, so I'm super
Okay.
proud of that. Yeah.
Do you see SDNA as sort of another version of Crew, a kind of a professional networking organization, or something different?
I do. I see there a lot of synergies actually, and I think, and I haven't had a conversation with the founding members yet, but I would suspect that a lot of the members of Crew are probably solo travelers occasionally, at least for business travel. But I'm sure there's some that travel solo for personal reasons as well. So I think there's some synergies there. We've got a big meeting coming up in May, and hope to have some conversations to see if some of my colleagues are interested in something like that.
Yeah, I think they would be. I think it's also a corporate benefit, a corporate travel benefit for major corporations. I've spoken to travel managers over the years who have been very sensitive to both the security and comfort of single women
Yes.
traveling on business. And as a corporation, if you're sending out a woman to travel alone on business, you have a liability and a responsibility to their safety and comfort. Not that you don't to men, but it's more obvious to women. So I think this would make a great, SDNA would make a great corporate benefit for corporate travelers that hopefully corporations would want to subscribe to.
Completely agree.
Do you see this as a membership organization, or just a website to go to? Or
I
both?
do. I do see it as a membership organization with some type of a subscription model.
Mhm.
That's what I'm thinking right now.
Okay.
Mm.
And the other thing that occurred to me is that this is a benefit not only for people who are traveling, but for people who live within their own city. I mean, if you're living in Montreal, if you could had access to information that led you to solo-friendly restaurants and events, it'd probably be a benefit as well.
Yeah, this is one of the greatest cities in the world for dining. There's so many options, and the restaurant scene is constantly changing. We have some amazing chefs here, but honestly, I've been living here for over a year now. It took me about a year to find my groove because you really need to be in the know in this particular city,
Right.
and so you need to know the right people. And when you're traveling and you're visiting a destination, you don't have access to that, right? So you tend to fall into the trap of, going to some of the websites or some of the apps that will serve up kind of the touristy places to go. And I think people are craving experiences and they really want to feel like they're getting more of a local experience rather than something that's a little more generic and tailored for people coming in from other cities. So, there's a tremendous opportunity here, and there's so many events going on. I'll give you a funny example, but and I'm not embarrassed to admit this, but I am a fan of Barbie, and since the movie came out, there's been a lot of fanfare around Barbie. But the Fairmont Hotel here in Montreal does a Barbie tea. And, I didn't know that. And I found that out by doing a little bit of research on some tea options to take my sister out. So I think people would love to attend events like that. They just don't know about them.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Um, the other question is might this be SDNA might be an opportunity for people to meet up with each other, not just find resources to travel alone, but maybe find other people to travel with.
Yeah, that would be terrific because I know, one of the reasons I decided to go to France with the wine club is, that's an overwhelming trip for someone like me to plan. I'm not really someone that likes to get into the minutia of the detail.
Hmm.
And I just don't have the clout with some of the wineries that my wine club does, right? So I know I'll get a much better experience that way. So I think sometimes you can pair up with people who know a destination better than you do, or they're better at research than you are. There's so many reasons to consider something like that.
So if I become a subscriber member of SDNA, then I might have the opportunity to meet up with people locally here in my city,
Yeah,
and we could plan travel together and get around the double occupancy. Uh,
yeah, for sure.
um, One thing that always, I shouldn't say always bothered me, but I was always kind of sensitive to when I traveled. I used to travel globally for Carlson Wagonlit and domestically for American Express Global Business Travel. There was never an invitation, maybe it was me, but there was never an invitation from the local CWT Amex people to go out after work. It's like they went home and I went back to my hotel, and I don't know if there's any means within SDNA, to help facilitate more interaction between, corporate coworkers who visit each other in different cities.
hmm
I don't.
I don't, I think there is a need for that. I think a lot of people go back to their hotel room and now it's, I think a lot of people order DoorDash or they order Uber Eats and, you know, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people still do that. Interestingly enough, I think, when I traveled for business, maybe it's because of my roots here in Montreal and being a foodie and loving to discover new restaurants, et cetera. But I would usually ask my colleagues, I'd let them know well in advance and say, hey, where should we eat? Because I hated the idea of going back to my hotel room and eating alone. And they
Right.
weren't always available, but there were times that they were. And I discovered some really great places doing that. So I think that it warrants, asking the question, hey, do you want to get together and do something?
Yeah. Or ask in advance before you get there.
Yeah.
Um, so I know you just started this. What are the next steps for you for this
What are the
initiative?
next steps? Well, right now, I think I have a pretty clear idea of, uh, you know, what the problems are in the industry for solo diners and travelers. I want to consult with some people that I know very well in the restaurant and hospitality industry, get some of their perspectives, and just share some of my own perspectives in terms of things that I think could be better as a solo diner and traveler. So those are some of the things I want to do in the early days. And in the meantime, I'm also looking at what's out there and how can I create a better experience in some of the different solutions that are out in the marketplace. I'm even considering building an app right now, so but it's still early days. This has started out kind of as a passion project, I would say, Al, but I think it's got a tremendous amount of opportunity, and I've had an incredible amount of support and encouragement from people in my network. So I think it's one day at a time, which is something new for me. I've been a perpetual planner my entire life, but I feel like it's one of those things I felt like I had to start somewhere, and I think it's like a snowball. It's going to grow.
Yeah, no, I hope so, and I believe it will. You certainly have the passion and the energy for it. I think it's a little bit like writing a book. You just have to tell yourself to write 10 pages a day,
That's right.
and to do something every day. One last story relative to Resi and Open Table. When I've used Open Table to dine alone, I just lie. I I say it's a table for two, and when I get there, it says, "Oh, I'm sorry, my friend died." But it would be
Well,
nice to to be able to be honest about it, and then when people when you do show up as a solo traveler, they treat you a little differently. They might do something nicer for you. Who knows? Offer a seat
I
at
I
the
don't
table.
know. It's interesting that you should say that. I wonder if it's a little bit better for men. I've had some really horrible experiences. I was refused a table at a restaurant in Los Gatos, California, which is an area where I lived in before I moved back to Montreal. And they kind of looked me over and they saw, I don't know, I just didn't fit, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
flat out refused me, and they had plenty of seats available. So that was really hurtful. I've had experiences like that. Even when I was in Montana 2 weeks ago, I went to a fabulous breakfast place. And the first day I went in and they said, "Hey, can we seat you?" And the second time I went, the hostess said, "Oh, is it just you?" And it was a combination of her facial expression and what she said. But I just felt so horrible. And this has happened to me several times. So,
That doesn't happen to men. It does
I
not.
don't think so. I
No.
don't think so.
So you're doing God's work, Christina.
I'm trying. I'm trying. But I have to tell you another funny story about some of these events. I'm really into food, and a couple of years ago, I heard about this amazing event at a pretty nice restaurant. It's a really nice resort property in Tennessee. And I called the reservation number, and I said to them, I said, "Look, I'm traveling on my own. I really want to do this thing. The food sounds really interesting. The chefs that you've invited sound great. I'm not going to be the only person on my own, am I?" And they're like, "Oh, no, no, don't worry. It's gonna be fine. We get all kinds of people attending this."
Good. Yeah.
I went to the opening reception and I was told there were 51 people registered. Guess who the one was? I thought I was going to die. I literally wanted to crawl under a rock. It was
Um,
horrible. I was always that single woman, in the
oh,
dining
yeah.
room for all of the events.
Well,
So
I think you've got a great idea and a great opportunity now. Until you're working on the website. Until then, how would people reach you if they have ideas or they want to know more?
well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I
Okay.
think that's a great place to start. So I welcome any feedback, and if people are interested in following me, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Well, good. Well, Christina, thanks for this. We've been speaking with Christina Woronchak, the founder of Solo Dining and Adventures. It's a great idea, a great product, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate your early support, Al. I'll never forget it. Thank you.
You're welcome.